Oh, if I was talking to the younger version of Bob McBride, I really would have convinced myself that my parents have a ton of experience and a ton of knowledge and have lived life and do a better job listening to my parents.
I would tell myself over and over, ask for help. If you're feeling a certain way, if you have certain thoughts, whatever you think the consequences of asking for help might be, not asking for help is going to have worse consequences.
I would tell the young Daryl, please don't be impulsive. Please make well thought out choices and decisions before you do things.
I think I would tell my younger self that I was worth it, that I was good enough, that everything that felt so final wasn't, that things would pass, and that there is hope, and there are people like me. I'm not so unique.
Don't base your own value as a person on other people's approval. Be okay being you.
The one thing that I would say, David, is knowing that, you need to be able to trust others. You need to know that you're not alone. And no matter what problem you encounter, you can always overcome it.
Find yourself some mentors and learn from them. Listen to your father. He's always right.
I think I had a lot of fear of I'm going to embarrass myself or things like that. So I think kind of if you have confidence and go at things that are healthy and do it in a healthy way and have balance about that.
Your parents are always right. They have the insight, they have the knowledge. Your parents are always right. They always choose what's best for you. And don't tell my parents that.
Don't be so hard on yourself when you're like, I just don't understand why I feel this way, and I don't understand why I, can't do this, and why I can't be there and be all to everybody.
What's going on right now is not as big of a deal as you think it is. I would say just kind of breathe it out.
There's no such thing as perfection, and I think I used to strive for that and want that and be that perfect kid, because that's kind of the pressure I felt in my own personal life. And that it's more about being happier and being my best self versus trying to impress everyone around me.
I wish somebody would have just said that you are worthy, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that you're not alone. Those are so important things to tell somebody when they're in those dark places.
Slow down and enjoy life. That's what I would tell myself. Take it easy.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2018 State of the Kids Community Report. Thank you so much for making the time to come out today to talk about and hear the results of this survey that we're going to present today. My name is Bob Marshall, and I'm the police chief in the city of Naperville. We are pleased to be looking for ways to support our youth as a community. We're here because we care. We care about the youth in this community. And for the past 12 to 18 months, community leaders have gathered and discussed the impact of stress on our young people today. Our goal was to seek to understand, asking valuable and important questions such as, what are the factors causing stress? What are some of the root causes? What are the coping mechanisms? Life, as we all know it, is much more complex today. Society has changed with the use of the internet, with social media. What are the coping mechanisms? How can we identify the triggers which lead to stress? How can we support our youth in this community by helping them make decisions, healthy choices? What is a support network we have in this community? From the community leaders, how can we help parents? How can we take advantage of the many community resources we have to help the kids, to help our parents? How can we empower them? These are all questions we asked. And then we came to the key decision point. And that key decision point was, how about asking the youth? Not only asking them, but listening, active listening to our youth. What is causing some of the stresses in their lives and how they are dealing with some of these stresses? So we talked about a survey instrument. And we understand that the last time we surveyed our youth was about 10 years ago from Naperville United Way. So as we all know, in the past decade, there's been tremendous changes in society. Like I already mentioned, the use of the internet and social media. So we look to an organization that has been a champion for youth in our community, and that is KidsMatter and IdaLynn. And KidsMatter and IdaLynn Wenhold stepped up and said, we'll do the survey. And they worked with both school districts to get that survey sent out to 7th and 10th graders in both District 203 and District 204. So tonight, you will hear and see a presentation with the results of those surveyed. And again, these were our young people in our community from both school districts. One of the big supporters of this report has been our mayor, Steve Cherico. So I'd like to introduce him at this time to say a few words. Mayor?
Thank you, Chief. Well, seeing you all here tonight, thank you for being here. It's really a testament to why Naperville is such a great community, because we all come together as parents, families, organizations, faith groups to support our youth, and that is really, really a big thing right now. We are learning so much as we listen, and we hear some of the stressors that are in their lives, but I don't want to give away the punchline, but I will tell you that there is no single answer. When you leave tonight, you're not going to walk out of here saying, oh, that was easy, because it's not. It's not easy. It does take a village. We've learned that. We know that. It's going to continue to take a village. It's going to take a lot of work on all of our parts, but I know that we're up to the task. I would be remiss if I did not mention that this sort of idea of the State of the Kids came up on the dais from Councilwoman Obarski, who's back here this evening. Thank you, Councilwoman, for the genesis of this idea. How about a round of applause? I think you're going to find the information that's provided this evening is very comprehensive. It's also very complex. There really is not a single answer to what is going on in our children's lives right now. But this is going to give us a look through their eyes of some of the things that they're feeling. And I think that we're going to see that as we are able to continue to collect this data through further surveys and start to measure it, that we will be able to start to apply resources as we can to start to help them to grow up to be healthy and mature adults and productive. So thank you all for being here. I think it's wonderful to see the support. And with that, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. And next I'd like to introduce both superintendents from School District 203 and 204, Superintendent Karen Sullivan and Superintendent Dan Bridges, for a few remarks. They have both been tremendous in helping us get this survey into the schools, along with the teachers and the staff. Again, this was a collaborative process, and again, I'm pleased to introduce both superintendents at this time.
Thank you, Chief. I'll lower that a little bit for me. You can raise it for you. Okay. So as educators, both Dan and I know that our students can't do well academically if they're struggling emotionally. So we're really fortunate to be in a community that has so many organizations here to support our children and our families, and you saw that if you were outside taking a look. I'm not going to try to name them all. I'll leave that to you, IdaLynn, if you want to do that. But I do want to thank all the members of the collaborative youth team that has been meeting for being here tonight. And we want to thank the parents who are here tonight. We are so fortunate to live in a community where our parents are so engaged and want to know what they can do to help their children. So we look forward to hearing the state of the kids along with you tonight.
Again, good evening and welcome. I'd also like to make sure that we thank a couple important people in this process. Chief and Mayor have already mentioned it, but IdaLynn, thank you for your leadership with KidsMatter and always putting kids first in this community. So your leadership in where we are tonight is much appreciated. Thank you so much. Let's thank IdaLynn. And Dr. Schuck, your work, thank you for the tireless effort that you've put in and being open and willing to the feedback that you've heard from people in both school districts and our community partners on how we best present this information to our community in a way that is meaningful and useful to us all. One of the belief statements that District 203 holds is that an exemplary school district is the result of a collaboration among students, staff, parents, and community. And I know that's true in Indian Prairie District 204 as well. And for tonight's purpose, we're going to change that a little bit. An exemplary community is a result of collaboration among the children, their parents, teachers, and its whole community. Because that's really what this evening reflects, because what you're going to hear tonight has inputs from all of those groups. And that's what makes this community what it is. And that's what makes our schools what they are. It's the involvement and the investment and the interest of our entire community. On behalf of both superintendents and the entire leadership group, thank you to our parents who are here tonight, who are interested in hearing more about how to best support our kids. Thank you to our community partners who are here tonight, welcoming you as you came in, who are in the room now, ready to be a part of the solution in this community to help our kids and ensure that they're successful academically, socially, and emotionally. Thank you very much for being here.
IdaLynn, could you join me, please? I think everybody here probably knows, and maybe some of you don't know, that IdaLynn has announced her retirement from KidsMatter. And I don't know, I just kind of feel sorry for the person who's going to take your spot. You know, IdaLynn has been tremendous in this community about putting kids first, as well as the organization Parents Matter too. Again, like I mentioned earlier, when we were looking for, okay, what's the best organization to get the information from the kids about stress? It was IdaLynn and the group from KidsMatter who stepped up and said, you know, we'll do this survey, we'll make this happen. She's a lady who has made quite a few things happen in this community for the benefit of our youth. And it's a pleasure for me to introduce her at this time, who's going to go ahead and explain the process and how we're going to roll out this very important data this evening. IdaLynn?
Well, thank you all so much for being here. I think what's so exciting about looking out into this audience is that we are all people who are passionate about the health and well-being of our kids. And we're gathered here to talk about a 6-letter word, stress, but we wanted to do an informal stress test before we get started. So I'd like you to think about your day and think about whether you had moderate or maybe high stress at any point during this day. If you did, please raise your hand and be honest. Moderate to high? I did. Okay, good. All right. Well, you know, that is inevitable. In all our lives, we bump up against this. And we know that as adults, if we do, our kids do. And in fact, you're going to hear some of the survey results that share that 70% of our 7th graders and 77% of our 10th graders say that they do experience moderate to high stress on a daily basis. So a little bit about KidsMatter for those not familiar. Our mission, in a nutshell, is to build resilient young people who say no to destructive choices and yes to endless opportunities. And every KidsMatter program and event, our Parents Matter 2 initiative, they all focus on prevention, on building resilience by building confidence and self-esteem, positive values, healthy boundaries, social competencies. But we all know that there is no Naperville bubble, that all of the issues of this world that are outside of our boundaries have permeated the lives of our own kids and our own families. That is the reality that we deal with. But the good news is this, that we are a community, as you can see, that links arms, that says our young people are one of our top priorities, if not the top priority. And that, to me, is so gratifying to see people come together for that purpose. This is truly a community initiative. It involves, as you can see, everyone from our mayor and our city council people that are here this evening, to our police chief, to our school superintendents, to our social service organizations, to our business partners, to all of you as parents. This is a community initiative. And that is why we know that we can make a difference, because of that network. But why is stress worth studying? Well, we realize that nationally, obviously this is an issue. And we look to an organization called Partnership for Drug-Free Kids. And they have done research on a national level and have found that 61% of young people say that stress has a great impact on their life every day. 61%. 49% say that they are not able to really manage that stress well, that they have trouble focusing. And of that group, 11%, 1 out of every 10, say that they have felt compelled to use alcohol or prescription drugs in order to cope with the stresses that they're dealing with. They're the national stats. But what are ours? We thought it was worth finding out what our kids are dealing with regards to stress. We actually did this 10 years ago. As Chief Marshall mentioned, we did a survey for the United Way. And we found through that survey that there were 3 key stressors impacting the lives of our middle school students and our high school students. Those 3 stressors were, number 1, competition. Competition in academics, athletics, and materialistic things. Second stressor, over-involvement in activities. Kids scheduled early morning to late at night with no downtime. And the third stressor was perfectionism as opposed to personal best. What we realized, as Chief Marshall says, that over these 10 years, so much has happened. And so a current survey will help us look at the past stressors, compare them to our current day stressors. So much has happened. As he mentioned, social media. Kids are connected 24/7 now if they choose to be. Throw in cyberbullying that happens because of the digital world. Throw into that the issues that we have struggled with as a community 5 years ago, losing 12 young people to heroin overdoses. There's a lot that has happened in their lives. And so our goal tonight is truly to present to you these results, but then that is just the beginning, because we will work hard to create resources to wrap around these sources of stress that are identified. To share with you the survey results, we have an outstanding individual, Dr. Patricia Schatz. She has put in countless hours to this project. Patricia is an associate professor at North Central College. She got her doctorate in developmental psychology from the University of Notre Dame. Any Notre Dame fans? Okay, there you go. And she has done over 18 years of research in the areas of parent, child, and family development. She also lives in Naperville and has 2 young girls who are here this evening to cheer on their mom with her husband. One is attending 2nd grade in a District 203 school. So would you please give Dr. Patricia Schatz a warm welcome.
Good evening. I'm, of course, a little stressed. I'm sick, so. First of all, before I begin, I just want to thank IdaLynn again for this collaboration. She has been an absolute wonderful partner through this project. We started this project about 1.5 years ago. She asked me to coffee, and I will be honest, I did not know what I was getting myself into, but IdaLynn is so passionate and so committed to helping our kids that anyone who knows her knows that when she asks, you say sure. So it has been an absolute joy to work with her and to get to know her. As IdaLynn said, I am Patricia Schatz. I am an associate professor at North Central, and my doctorate is in developmental psychology. I have spent many years studying parents and children and the impact of families' relationships on kids. I also want to give a shout out to my undergraduate student, Abina, who is actually also sick. She's unable to be with us tonight. which is heartbreaking because this project would not have happened without her. She's an undergraduate senior at North Central, and it's going to take me a really long time to write her recommendation letters because she's just amazing and there's so much to say. So if she was here, I would have her stand, but obviously she is home with the flu, unfortunately. Okay, so what is tonight going to look like? What will our journey be? First, I'm going to give you a little bit of background information about how we got here, how we started this process. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the survey itself, what it looked like, how we developed it. Then I'll talk about the results, which I think is what the majority of you are here to listen to. And then we're going to talk about what's next. So what are our plans? What are we going to use this information for? Okay, so some background information. When IdaLynn and I met over a year and a half ago for coffee, we really sat down and kind of talked about what we wanted to do. And really, we wanted to increase our understanding about stress. We wanted to understand what is happening to our kids and why certain things tend to stress kids out more than others. We wanted to identify which factors are causing our kids' stress. And in particular, which coping strategies, both positive and negative, are adolescents using to deal with stress. The mission of KidsMatter is to help kids make healthy choices. And so we wanted to know whether or not they were or are making healthy choices, and if not, how we can help them make better choices. My favorite part of this project all along has been this goal that we accomplished. I really wanted to listen to our kids. I wanted to ask them, what is happening? What are you experiencing? What can we do to help? And that has been an awesome goal that we have accomplished with this survey. So how do we end up here? First thing we did was we developed multiple community partnerships. We formed a group. We had a psychotherapist from Naperville who works particularly with kids and adolescents in our communities. We had parents. We had Chief Marshall. We had individuals who really just wanted to come together and figure out ways to ask the right questions. Once we drafted the questions and figured out exactly what it was that we wanted to ask, we did a lot of pilot surveys, meaning that we asked youth groups to give us information to answer the questions. I took it to several of my classes at North Central College, and I actually have some students here who helped pilot the survey. Once we had results from those pilots, we then asked them what was good about it and what was bad. And then with that information, we did lots of drafts, multiple drafts over and over again to make sure that we were asking the questions the way that they should be asked and that we were getting to the heart of what we needed to know. Once we had a really good draft of the survey, we then took it to the schools. The schools have been such a great collaborative partner in this process because they really have helped us figure out what exactly our kids in 203 and 204 should be asked and what is important for us to ask them about. And then finally, the last step was I took this survey to the Institutional Review Board at North Central. This, for us researchers, is a way to make sure that we are doing everything okay, right? So that we're being ethical about things, that everything is valid, and that for the most part, our survey is reliable research standards. So then what do we do? How do we kind of get this process going? The first thing we did was we asked the parents. All of our participants are under the age of 18, and so we need permission from you guys to make sure that it's okay to ask them these questions. We then asked the kids for permission. We wanted to make sure that they knew that they didn't have to take the survey, that they didn't necessarily have to finish the survey if they didn't want to, And then also everything that we asked them, their answers would be confidential. So we would never put their name to any of the specific answers that they had. Then our third step was to give the teachers a script. So when they were implementing the survey, all of the kids heard the same thing, right? We wanted to kind of reduce the variability that they heard. So the students, the teachers write a script to each of the classrooms. Okay, who took the survey? The survey was implemented to all 7th and 10th graders in Naperville 203 and 204 school districts. It's approximately around 7,000 kids, and our rate of response was around 66%. We had about 4,800 kids who answered the survey originally, but we ended up having to take some of them out simply because some of them decided to stop taking the survey, and then some of them were just being a little sassy. We had one 7th grader who told us that his gender was a walrus, and so we took that out knowing that it most likely was not an honest answer. In terms of our ethnicity and race breakdown, this is pretty consistent with that of the school districts. We had about 50% of our kids who identified as Caucasian, 20% Asian, 15% Hispanic, and 6.4% Black and African American. Okay, what did we ask? What did we want to know? Our first research question was, what factors cause our children stress? Generally, what is bothering you? Our second one was, what are daily stressors? Third is, what coping strategies do kids use to deal with stress? And the fourth is, how can we help our kids prevent and better manage stress? Before I get into the answers to these questions, I do want to give a little overview of how we defined stress for these kids and also why we were interested in knowing about stress. So we define stress as this: mental or emotional worry caused by problems in your life, school, or work. As we all demonstrated, we all experience stress, right? The majority of you guys raised your hand when IdaLynn asked. And so what we know about stress is that stress is a people thing. It's not a kid thing, right? It's an inevitable dynamic of everyday life. We also know that stress is relative, that we all individually deal with stress in a different way. A couple weeks ago, my husband and I experienced the nightmare of a frozen pipe in our basement, our neighbor's townhome basement, actually. And it caused a waterfall in our basement. It was pretty awful. But as I was standing there, catching water truly from the waterfall of my ceiling, I looked over and I saw both of my kids. My 5-year-old, if you know her, she's here, she didn't really care. She actually managed to be really sassy with the firemen who were walking through our house at the time. She was really not bothered by this stressful event that was occurring. My 7-year-old, however, was stressed. She was having an emotional reaction to it. She was worried that we would have to move because of the flood. All of these things were going through her mind, and she was really kind of reacting to it. And honestly, I looked over, and as I'm catching water, I thought to myself, wow, right? Look at how these kids in the same environment are handling this stressful event differently, right? Stress is relative. We can have one kid who's taking one AP class who's super stressed out. You can have another kid who's taking 4 and it's not really affecting them, right? So we know that it's something that we all individually experience. But when does stress matter? Stress can become chronic. And when it's something that continuously overloads us and overwhelms us, it causes us to kind of hit the exhaustion phase. We all have different reactions to stress. We have emotional, cognitive, and physical reactions. But a lot of times when we have multidimensional levels of stress and we have multiple things occurring at once, and it's constant, then it becomes problematic. So here are our results. Before I begin, I just wanted to give you a taste of what the current levels of stress were when we had the kids conduct this survey. As you can see, most of our 7th graders, the y-axis here is percentage. So about 40% of our 7th graders were rating their current level of stress as low. But our 10th graders were more at a moderate level. This was given in October of last year. So there was nothing really kind of majorly stressful at that time, finals and things like that. But as you can see, it was something that was kind of shifting as time went on. Okay, so research question 1. What factors cause our children stress? We asked our kids to rank these 7 categories of stressors. These are in no particular order, but things like personal pressure, society, home life, competition, school, peers, and personal health. The top 3 categories of general stress were school, competition, and peers. I'm going to talk about each of the contributing factors within these categories, but I will say before I even start is that we're not surprised, right? If you were to ask me, I'm looking out at the crowd and I'm seeing a lot of people that I work with, so don't hold this against me, but if you were to ask me what stresses me out, I would say work, right? Sorry, guys. And if you think about it, school is our kids' jobs, right? They go every day, they're experiencing it. So when it comes to the first category of school, we weren't really surprised. We're no way downplaying it, but we were definitely not shocked to see that. So then we asked the kids to rank different factors that contribute to their stress within the categories. So for 7th graders, we asked them to rank things that cause them low to no stress, moderate stress, and high stress. For 7th graders, too much homework was the top contributing factor of stress about school. Getting good grades was the second, and being overscheduled was third. I know it's really hard to see these numbers, but you might note that parent pressure is a close fourth for our 7th graders. I also want to point out that coaches and teachers actually cause our kids no to low stress, and this will be important when we talk about coping skills later on. For 10th graders, it was a little different. Too much homework, yes. Getting good grades, yes. But personal pressure was really kind of getting to them in terms of contributing to their stress about school. We'll talk a little bit about this later on when we talk about daily stressors, but what seems to be happening is that kids are putting a lot of pressure on themselves to do well, to succeed. And because of that, they're contributing high stress about school to that. So the second category, general category of stressors, competition. Again, we weren't really surprised. 10 years ago, we did a similar survey, and 10 years ago, they said competition. So for this category to be the second general factor, we weren't really shocked, but I will say that within the categories of competition, we were a bit surprised by some of the answers. For 7th graders, the factors contributing high stress for competition were competition within athletics, competition within academics, and then competition within extracurricular activities. So anything not sport related. Clubs, Girl Scouts, I guess, I don't know. It was the first thing that popped in my head. I guess selling cookies could be very stressful. We're in the middle of that right now, and I will say that it is. So for competition, that was our 7th graders. For 10th graders, competition within academics became the first contributing factor to high stress. Within academics was second, and then extracurricular activities, so competition with extracurricular activities and with peers were tied for third for our 10th graders. I mentioned that we were a little surprised. And the one thing that we were surprised about was the competition with material possessions, because that was not stressing them out. And in addition with social media is stressing them out for another reason, but it's not necessarily that they're competing with one another, it's that they're constantly kind of experiencing it, and I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, the third category, peers. We asked our kids to rate what factors contributed to their high stress in relation to peers. And social standards was identified as things like fitting in, being part of a group, feeling as if you had someone that you could rely on. 37% of our 7th graders say that that causes them high stress. 28% of our 7th graders say that bullying causes them high stress in relation to peers, which, as someone who has done research with bullies and bullying, this was highly disturbing to me. We asked the kids whether or not their significant other causes them stress, and then in addition, whether or not a lack of a significant other causes them stress. And as you can see, parents of 7th graders, not having a significant other is causing our 7th graders a bit of stress. Social media was a close fourth, and we think what's happening there is that bullying is related to those, right? Cyberbullying is something on social media that's happening a lot. And several of our kids also noted that going online and feeling as if everyone else has a significant other or has a friend and things like that is causing them stress in relation to those dynamics. For 10th graders, it switched in terms of social standards is still causing them high stress, but a lack of a significant other is the second leading factor contributing to high stress in relation to peers. And then bullying was a third. Again, social media was a close fourth. And again, we think that they are obviously related in terms of what's happening with our kids and with their peers. Okay. So then we moved on and we asked them, what are your daily stressors? What on a day-to-day basis are you stressed out about? We asked them what their average level of daily stress is and what the causes of their daily stress are. The average level of daily stress for our 7th graders and 10th graders shifted a bit in terms of age. About 48% of our 7th graders say that they're experiencing moderate levels of daily stress, whereas about 38% of our 10th graders said they're experiencing high levels of daily stress. So we were a bit concerned by that, right? And we wanted to know what are the main causes of this daily stress. Top 3 reasons: pressure from parents, pressure from self, and conflict with parents. I did some statistical analyses on these, and I basically figured out a correlation or found a correlation between an increase in the pressure from parents and self with an increase with conflict with parents. So this is not a causation, but this is a relationship. This is indicating that the more pressure from both the parents and the self is most likely related to an increase in conflict with their parents. What's happening? What's happening with this pressure from both parents and kids? We had a speaker in 203 not too long ago, Dr. Jonathan Singer from Loyola University, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, want the best for your child, not for your child to be the best. And as I'm reading all of these quotes from our kids, this has been something that I have really kind of thought about and that has kind of ruminated in my mind over and over again. It took the Cubs 108 years to win the World Series, right? To get that trophy. A lot of times what's happening is that we think that them getting that trophy is what's best. but maybe that's not what is best, right? Something else that was kind of disturbing, 53% of our 7th graders say that personal expectations cause them daily stress, and 77% of our 10th graders say the same. Again, those numbers are pretty significant in terms of the fact that they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves and experiencing daily stress because of that pressure. What we then did was ask them about this pressure, about the daily stress. And so I have some quotes here from the students themselves in regards to what they're experiencing and the stresses that they're having. I'm going to put them up here so you guys can read them as they go through. So as you can see, the quotes are reflecting the statistics, right? These kids are experiencing a lot of stress based on homework, clubs, parent expectations, and this is what they're claiming to be causing them daily stress. We then ask them about their daily stress and how it impacts them on a daily basis. Specifically, we asked them, does your stress make it difficult for you to perform your daily tasks? 40% of our 7th graders said yes, while 50% of our 10th graders said yes. When we asked them why, they basically said that it's so overwhelming that they can't concentrate. They lose track of what they're working on, they worry and therefore get off task, and they can't focus. Remember, when does stress matter? When it becomes chronic, multidimensional, and when it overwhelms all parts of our lives. Based on these and based on these answers, we then wanted to know what they're doing to cope with it. So we asked them, what coping skills do you use to deal with stress? Good news to start out with. The majority of our kids are watching Netflix. I can relate to this. I've been watching The Crown a lot in relation to my coping with my stress. It's a great show. I don't know if anybody's watching it. They're also playing video games, maybe a little bit more than we would like them to, right? Listening to music and spending time with others. So healthy behaviors to cope with their stress. We then asked them about some negative behaviors. 7th graders, we asked them whether or not they are turning to alcohol and drugs in response to stress. 98% of our 7th graders said they never drink alcohol in response to stress. Again, good news. 99% don't smoke, and 99% said they do not use drugs not prescribed to them in response to stress. One of our 7th graders, when we said, do you use drugs, he or she wrote, no, ... I'm 12. So that was kind of the dynamic that we got. I thought, good answer. For our 10th graders, it was a little different. 84% never drink alcohol in response to stress, but 16% do. 11% said rarely, and 5% said sometimes. 98% of our kids, our 10th graders, don't smoke in response to stress, and 95% do not use drugs not prescribed to them, but 6% do, or 5%, sorry. No, 5. Sorry. 3% said rarely, 2% said sometimes, and 1% said often. When we're asking them about the drugs, it's actually 6%, sorry about that. When we're asking them about what drugs they use, they said marijuana, pain pills, Xanax, and Adderall. When we asked them where they're getting it, They said their parents' medicine cabinet or they're buying it from someone they know. These statistics or these answers are pretty consistent with statistics from the National Drug Associations that say that chronic users usually, unfortunately, start like this, getting drugs from their parents or from people that they know. So this is consistent with those numbers. Then we ask them whether or not they seek help with stress. Over 50% of our 7th and 10th graders claim they rarely or never talk to someone about their stress. I didn't like this number. It's not high, it's a little too high for me. However, when we did, those who do say they talk to someone about their stress, our 7th graders are saying their parents. And our 10th graders are talking to their friends. So if they are talking to people, they're talking to good people. In addition, remember when I said that their coaches and teachers are not causing them stress? They're actually seeking out coaches and teachers to talk to them about stress. So that is positive, and that is something that we were excited to see. Because of this and the statistics that we found, we then wanted to know how we can help our kids prevent and better handle stress. We asked our kids what they need in order to better manage their stress. Our 7th graders want less homework. Our 10th graders want more time. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but. And both of our 7th and 10th graders actually want better sleep. They want more sleep, and they want better quality sleep. Then we asked them to tell us about it. Basically, we flat out said, what can we do to help you? And these are just some of the quotes that our students gave us, or answers that they gave us to that question. I thought this was one of the most telling comments that we got from our kids, and actually something that I like to hear, right? We're starting the conversation, and so I was really kind of excited to hear what they had to say, and also think about the fact that this dynamic, these community partnerships, are one of the ways that we are going to work with them and talk with them to figure out ways to help our kids. So before we talk about what's next, I do want to just kind of overview what we learned. Number one thing we learned is that the top 3 general stressors for our kids are school, competition, and peers. Number 2, the main causes of their daily stress are pressure from parents, pressure from self, and conflict with their parents. Number 3, some kids are turning to negative behaviors, but most are using healthy coping skills. And number 4, kids want to be educated about stress. They want to feel safe, and they want to feel understood. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to IdaLynn, who's going to talk a little bit about what's next, initiatives that we have underway, in addition to initiatives that we plan to implement now that we have these results of the survey. So thank you.
you think she did an incredible job? That was amazing. So where do we go from here? Where does this study lead us? What are the next steps? Well, the good news is this is just the beginning. Just the beginning for KidsMatter, our collaborative youth team partners, our business partners who offer a variety of clinical services. And I just want to thank those partners that were out there today to greet all of you. There were a number. I do have a list here somewhere, and I would love for them to be acknowledged. These are the organizations that were represented. 360 Youth Services, the Alive Center, Artful Impact, I Support Community, Linden Oaks Hospital in Edward, Little Friends, Loaves and Fishes, NAMI of DuPage, Nick's Network of Hope, Robert Crown for Health Education, SamariCare, the Education Center, the Boy Scouts, Children's Museum, YMCA of Naperville, the YWCA as well, Naperville Park District, Indian Prairie School District 204, Naperville Community School District 203, North Central College, and our faith community liaisons, and of course the City of Naperville, the Naperville Police Department, and the Naperville Public Library. We also had the Community Alliance for Prevention with us and Rosecrans. Let's give them a round of applause. You know, I think what is so gratifying that you can see tonight is that we are in this together. Naperville is united in its efforts to ensure that our kids can grow up healthy and caring and competent despite these stressors. And why? Because we're united in our efforts to do exactly that. And we already have 2 resources that we have developed. One is called a crisis text line. And that crisis text line, as you can see, is a great way for our young people to reach out and get help. This was developed by the collaborative youth team, but I need to give kudos to Irene Levenis, a social worker for the police department. Irene took this over the goal line. This took a lot of time to make happen. But our kids are comfortable with texting. And so if they text REACH 741, they can connect to a person who's a trained professional. That is just to me such a great, great resource. We also have one called Ask the Expert Live. Parenting isn't easy. We know that from this evening. And we know that, I hate to say it, that we are often the cause of stress. And we've seen that from our results. But the good news is this. This resource has been created so that parents can get help, can get support, they can learn about free parenting strategies because this is at no cost. So you have 2 opportunities. You can go to our Parents Matter 2 website. There is a landing page there, and you can connect to a professional by phone or online. It connects you to Linden Oaks Navigator system. They will connect you to any of 1,500 resources. Or you can choose to reach out and set up a time to meet at a casual location for a casual conversation about your concerns. Again, at no cost. And we need to recognize Linden Oaks, SamariCare, the Education Center, also Edgewood Clinical Services, and Susan Meichert and Associates. They are offering this service free of charge. Could you give them a round of applause? We also have a few other resources that we are now working on. One is a workshop that will incorporate all of the research you saw tonight. We want to compare the 7th grade stressors with the 10th grade stressors. We're going to include what we call lifelines to life-saving resources through all of these wonderful partners that you were introduced to. This workshop will be offered in a variety of locations. We hope within our schools, PTSAs, home and schools, faith communities, our Naperville Moms Network. But we also are going to incorporate that information into a video so that you can access it online if you're not able to attend a workshop. We also are going to create a practical toolkit of stress-less tips that you can, within your own family, start to use. Hopefully you picked up the flyer that listed some of those tips. I just want to share one. These tips are meant to be fun. They're meant to lower family stress. And here's one I want us all to try. This is offered by Samara Care Counseling. Use breathing to help you manage feelings and shift the mind-body state. Try Darth Vader breathing. Breathing in through the nose normally and out through the nose with a rushing sound like Darth Vader. Or try bunny breathing. 3 quick sniffs in the nose and 1 long exhale out the nose. I was going to have you all try that together, but I thought that might be a little difficult. But we are here to serve you. This community is here to serve you. And we are that village that our mayor referred to. All of you. This represents a microcosm of Naperville. And so we hope that tonight you have been able to learn more about the stressors that our kids are experiencing. But also we hope that most of all you've learned that there are resources to help our young people deal with those stressors in positive ways through developing coping mechanisms that will help them build resilience. Because we know that our goal is to help our kids not merely survive, but to truly thrive. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and please greet some of our CYT partners on your way out and take advantage of their resources. Thank you.